Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin, and I'm here today to talk with you about the fact that it matters what we show our children. Here in 2017, we might not be living like the Jetsons, but we are living in a very digital age. With televisions inside even every hospital room, it's possible that a child fresh out of the womb could consume our media immediately as it catches glimpses of TVs while it's being passed around the room. And while that may seem like a far-fetched and even comical thought, and admittedly it is, it does highlight just how easily and carelessly we expose our children to our multimedia. And before moving on, I want to make abundantly clear, I am not talking about shows of the kind of Rick and Morty, South Park, or Family Guy. Those shows have NC-17 ratings and are not on at times and places where children are normally watching. Those shows are specifically designed for adults. They're just made in the medium of animation, something that has been demeaned to mean just for kids in recent history. Now, the argument of "it's just for kids" is less of an argument and more of an asinine excuse to put garbage programming on television aimed at kids. We all know of shows like Sesame Street, which exists to teach kids about the basics of life, like colors, shapes, and numbers and letters. I know, everything your child needs to get through kindergarten. But however, since 1985, children here in America have had their own syndicated programming all to themselves, with the advent of things like the Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network, which just turned 25 on the 1st of this month. And I'm here to tell you that we need to be careful about the adult themes that we allow these channels to show our children. Because adult themes in children's media can typically go one of two ways. You can have SpongeBob SquarePants, who had an episode entitled "Are You Happy Now?" In that episode, a character realistically is working through a down period of depression. Even when his friends try to cheer him up, he can't shake the funk. The episode then goes to show him performing acts like sticking his head in an oven for comedy, or throwing a rope over a ceiling post for comedy, just to pull up a bird cage, even though he hadn't owned a bird before or after this episode. All for comedic effect. To be clear, a show that is aimed at children, your children, freely showed a character depicting suicidal seeming actions as a joke. You also have the other side of the argument with Arthur, which had a show entitled April 9th. This show aired not long after 9/11 and depicted some of the ways that people experience and overcome trauma differently. While at school, the school that the main cast is in catches on fire. One child loses a journal filled with notes from a pen pal who lives very far away. Another sees a teacher get hurt in the fire. The third is in fear because his father is still inside of that burning school and he doesn't know when he's going to see him come out. There's nothing that he can do. And the fourth wasn't there at all. He doesn't know what happened, and he doesn't exactly know how he's allowed to feel. With the help of adult guidance, they overcome their fears and sadnesses in an extremely real way, while not extremely blowing off the fear that they are allowed to feel when something traumatic happens. Both shows are popular, with nearly the same age groups. Both portray dark adult themes. The difference comes down to the fact that one played this up for laughs, while the other took the time to not dumb down the material, but make it relatable and a great lesson. One will cause kids to mock other children who are depressed and turn to suicide, and the other has the potential to open up a dialogue with adults on the issues that they can now understand. What's even more jarring is the fact that this dialogue should not end when our children hit 12. When your children outgrow these shows, it doesn't mean that they're not still absorbing all of this information. Recently, a series called 13 Reasons Why came out. This show, like its predecessor book, claimed to address adult issues that teens faced in a way that teens could understand. The show's producers went to places where teenage suicide was an epidemic, and they did the one thing that they were told not to do twice. Throughout the show, they showed a teen who is facing problems that many American teens sadly do have to face, with huge cuts leading from her inner elbow down to her wrist on both arms that would eventually lead to her death by bleeding out. This show was marketed as a teen guide to real life and actually spawned several copycats. Children died, and I still had parents telling me that they let their teenagers, their children, watch the show unsupervised. There are parents who have lost their children because they did not take the time to monitor what their children were watching and discuss that. And that is a grave mistake that no one should ever make because the consequences are dire. The only way to keep our children safe is to monitor the things that shape them as people, including the media that they consume daily. Now, this is not to say that you should encase your child in a bubble outside of social media. It's not even really an option here in 2017 unless you live like the Amish. And since you're listening to me talk about this right now, I can nearly guarantee that that's not the case. Besides, there are shows that are made for children and teens that teach great lessons, like Adventure Time, which uses its colorful cast and simple stories to teach very real lessons about emotional abuse and dementia. What I am saying is that we as adults have a responsibility to monitor what we allow our children to watch and speak up when it's not what we want them to be learning. And when something does come up that goes against our values as people, we need to sit down and have those hard conversations before they are the last conversations. It matters what we show our children.